Welcome to the first session of the stability and mobility part of your athletic development. Today we'll be talking through your first component of stability and mobility, what it is and why you should use it, and how we want you to implement it into your session. I'm Shane, and this is Annie, our subject. So we'll talk you through the components of each one. Stability and mobility are an important part of athletic development, and they coexist within your sport. Each one is important in its own right, but we want to empower you to make the decisions on how much of each one you want in your program. Stability is the amount of control you have of the range, and then mobility is the amount of range you have in a joint. So some of you will need more stability, some of you will need more mobility. Depending on how you are and how you're feeling through these exercises, we want you to do more or less of each one. We're going to start with stability and the exercises around stability that are going to help you in your sport and your range. A lot of the stability exercises are going to be challenged on feet because that's where your sport is played. Your sport is played on feet, and for the most part, we'll challenge it on feet. So the first exercise is a single leg balance reach around the clock face. So stand on one leg, preferably we'd rather you be in barefoot or in socks, not in shoes. The reason being is a lot of the cushion of the foot is taken away from the stability aspect of the foot. So on bare feet or single leg or on single leg stance, so stand on one leg, reach forward to 12 o'clock. Now the important point here is that the hip is forward. It's not a squat where you're sitting into it. You're remaining quite tall as you reach. So you reach into 12, you're making way around the clock, whichever side you're on. So she'll go 11 and come back to center, and then to 10, back to center. We're all going all the way across to 7 on one side and 5 on the other. We're leaving 6 for now in this phase. So as you'll see here, trying to control and rotate with the movement. It's important here that you don't stay fixated and forward. We want the knee to be able to control the motion in and out of the movement. So as she rotates, she is rotating and she's reaching, touching the floor. The other common mistake here is that you put your weight through the foot. So you go all the way through, you put your weight through the foot, and then you come back. It's taking the demand out of that left hip or right hip to control the movement. So as you go around, you're trying to get that control. There's a little bit of a squat pattern going on here. I want to keep this hip extended as you reach. It's important that that happens and it doesn't become a squat. We get to that point after. So reaching all the way through. So we're going to do one clock face, which is done. We'll do a second clock face and move on. Now, like I said at the start, we want you to decide which you need more of. Do you need more stability? Is this a challenge for you? Do you find that in a game that these things are something you need to work on? Then we'd like you to add more of these exercises to your program. Good. So that control of the knee, that knee trying to find the stability is exactly what we're looking for. We need to get away from the idea that the knee doesn't move into valgus and out of valgus. We want to teach it to go there and come out of it. It's very important because our sport will demand us to be there in these ranges, and we have to be controlled in those ranges and be able to come out of those ranges. That's really important that you develop that skill in your technique. So you're going to trial these, and each time you do them, you become slightly better. You have to give the body a chance to recognize what it's trying to achieve, and then you can make the corrections. What we're hoping you do each time is to stay controlled with the movement, keep your hip forward, reach as far as you can, and then come back to center. You don't need to necessarily go as far as you possibly can and lose control and then fall onto that weight. Go as far as you can reach. An analogy here I'd use is imagine you stood on a stone in a river, tip in the river, you're making a ripple in the river, but you're not putting your foot through the water. If that makes sense. Okay. Next exercise. It's a single leg balanced toe touch. Okay, so on one leg, you're reaching down to the floor and then come back up again. It's good range here by Annie. She's got good range, and what she's doing here is hopefully is keeping the trail leg, the foot that's not on the floor, close to our center of mass. Don't want it out compensating for the movement. We want it close to our center of mass. She's reaching to the floor and coming all the way back up. Notice that nice flexion and a flexion of the ankle, knee, and hip. She's come all the way up, and make sure you fully extend at the top. You always come back up the center. That's very important. You don't stay in a flex position as you do the movement. So come all the way back up and then back down again. We'll go for 5 reps here and then change sides. Now the repetition is all about teaching the nervous system to do the movement. There isn't a prescribed amount of sets and reps on this in this moment, in this component of your athletic development. This is all about challenging the movement, getting good quality reps, and then recognizing when you're going too far and too much and stopping and taking your breather. So 5 reps is a good starting point here. If you feel you can do more, please continue to do more. Okay, so we're back on the right side. We'll do it again. We'll do the right side again 5 times, and then change 5 times. All the way down and reach, that's good. All the way back up, down, and all the way back up. So fully extend the hip on the top. It's very important. There's key characteristics here that are important, that you're reaching, you're stabilizing yourself, but you always start on this center point here. If you're at home and 5 is too much for you and you're doing 2 quality reps, absolutely perfect. Take your time and just make sure you're getting good quality repetition in the movement. Good. And slow it down. The important point here is that you don't use momentum to get you through the movement. Slow and controlled actions will cause the musculature to take control, and you really have to embed that into the program. So quickness and speed and letting gravity do the work is not what we're looking for. Nice controlled motion each time. Okay, good. On to the next one. It's slightly challenging it, but now on different planes of motion. We did a forward reach. Now we're going to do the forward reach, but further. So there's more activation of the glute because you're tilting that pelvis more forward. So there's going to be more length of the glute. So as you squat down, you're reaching forward. You're coming back up. But next time you go down, I want you to go to the right side, and then up again, and then go to the left side, which Annie will demonstrate now. So we'll do it twice through. So reaching forward, 10 degrees, more forward on your reach. Come all the way up again to center. Go, yeah, good. All the way back down. Reach to the side. Again, that trail leg, you see the way it went out to the side, is trying to counterbalance itself. But we want to challenge the glutes, the muscles, the hamstrings, and the lower limb in the complex of the calf to control that movement. So keep that leg close to your body, and then go again. You'll find that some plane of motion on the front and the left or the right is going to be more challenging than another, and that's something to look at. So we'll look at Annie here again when she goes on the inside, quite good control. We go on the outside. If you feel like the hip is bailing out, so too much excessive motion here coming out and driving the hip forward, close the angle. So don't go as far with the reach, go closer to your toe to get less of this bail and more of a sit-down approach into the movement. Yeah, change legs. So again, squatting down like before, touching and reaching in front, good, and then all the way up, and left and right. This is the component of your leg development that needs to be explored. This is all human movement. This is challenging joints, challenging bones, challenging muscles, and you have to let the nervous system develop a pattern to correct itself. Part of this will be looking for good movement and correcting good movement, but a lot of this is teaching the body and letting the body go into motion and coming out of it controlled. As long as you feel you're in control of the motion, the semantics of the movement does not particularly matter too much here. I want us to explore the stability of the movement, and that's the most important thing in this phase. So there are 3 stability exercises for you to try at home. Vary the repetition as you feel fit, but that was the kind of starting point for your exercise. So 5 repetitions on one, and on that one is around the clock face twice, and on the last one we did each one twice. So we're going to go into mobility now. We're going to do 3 exercises of mobility again, and each time in each week as we go through this component, every time you'll get a new exercise, a new thing to explore. It doesn't mean that these exercises become null or are not warranted in your program. They're very important all the way through, and you find an exercise that is beneficial for you, you should always put it into your program. Okay, so we start with 3 mobility exercises. The first one is anterior hip. Okay, so you get into position on a mat preferably, put one foot forward, hands across your chest, and try and stabilize your core and your hip so there isn't an arching. So you stabilize your hip and just lean into that movement as far as you possibly can. The stretch here should be on the hip flexor. You go in, 3-second hold, and then come all the way back out into center. Correct yourself if you feel like you're arching or bending too far forward. You want to maintain a straight line between the shoulder, the hip, and the knee on the floor. Okay, so you're leaning into it, not arching forward or arching back. You want to maintain that position and then just sit into it as far as you possibly can, holding that stretch and then coming out of it. We'll do 5 times, so 3-second hold, and then come back. Good. Yeah, always come back to center, always to that starting position. Good. And then change, yeah. So we do the other side. So often I find a lot of athletes stay in flexion a lot of the time. If you're one of those athletes that stays in flexion and doesn't fully extend, it means you can't engage your glutes as well as you possibly can. So this could be a good exercise for you if you feel like one of those. But again, like we said at the start, you might be an athlete with excessive mobility, and this mobility stuff may not be good for you. We want to empower you to make the right exercise choice as you progress through your program. Yeah, 5 repetitions. Now, do another round if you feel at the end of this you want to do more, but we want to give you a selection of exercises to choose from. The next one is your hamstring mobility exercises. So a lot of you may have tight hamstrings. So straight out in front of you, toe can be up. For now, we'll talk about the variety of tweaking exercises, about foot positions and everything else to get different engagement. But for now, it's toe up. The first one, you're going to reach forward as far as you possibly can, and then come back up the center. So when you reach forward, try and reach to your toe level. So it's not to the floor, it's more to your toe level. So do that one again, Annie. So reach to your toe level. Good. And then come back up the center, and then you're going to go left or right as you reach. Left or right. So you're going left first, and then come up, and then try the other side. We're going to do 3 rounds of that. While Annie's going through, I'll explain why we're doing 3 reaches. You've got 3 hamstrings. It's not just one. The hamstrings are made up of 3 different muscle groups, or muscles, sorry, and each one has a different insertion. So each hand reach biases the stretch on the hamstring, depending on if it's more medial, so inside or outside of the hamstring. And each one will tackle each hamstring slightly differently, so give you a better range and a better stretch of each hamstring. Good. And find the range here whereby you're not compensating. If you feel like you're starting to bend the knee a little bit, you may be reaching too far. Try and keep the leg straight, that's important, and then find your range within the movement. So we go on to the other side. Same again, reaching forward. That's good. And again, this is how you feel. Do you feel like this exercise is targeting where it should target? And if it isn't, make slight adjustments between the foot coming up or down, or how far you're reaching with the movement. Good. Excellent. Now, the last one we're going to do is the adductor stretch, okay? So another problematic area for footballers and hurlers is our grinds, right? So sometimes our grinds don't allow us to get into the movements we want to do because they become tight and short. So this is an exercise to lengthen up the adductors. So get into a position where you put the leg out in front. The important point here is that the ankle is rotating in, so it locks in the tibia or the ankle complex. Is very important that it locks in. I'll explain why in a second. So you're in a position here, hands across your chest. Important point here is that you're fully flexed, fully extended. You're not flexed from the hip. If you start flexing forward, it's going to take the demand off the adductors, what we don't want. So you're in this position. You're going to rotate away from me, Annie. Rotate away from me. Correct? And then back in again. What it's doing here is stretching the adductor in 3 planes of motion. So it's stretching it from the proximal end and the distal end, so the closest to you and the furthest away from you, and also in 3 planes of motion, because you're like twisting it like a towel as you do this. So it's locking at one end and you're twisting at the other end, so stretching the hamstring in 3 planes of motion, the adductors in 3 planes of motion. Good. If you're finding this in the lower back, to shorten the lever length, okay? And then maybe not go as much. Changing hand positions will change the structure and the feel of the adductor. So make sure you're feeling it where you should feel it as you progress through this exercise. Okay. So do the other side, same thing again, lock in that foot. Make sure that hip is fully extended before you start. The hip needs to be fully extended, otherwise you're taking the load off the adductors. So you're reaching towards me, that's good. Yeah, we go for 5 repetitions on here. And just make sure you do feel it in those adductors when you do the stretch. Okay, 2 more. That's good, keeping the hip forward and fully extended, being very tall and upright as you rotate. Perfect. Okay. So there's 6 exercises. 3 stability, 3 mobility for you to try at home. And really the emphasis at the start of the session was about trying to discover and empower yourself where you are along the continuum of stability and mobility. Because some may be more appropriate for others, it's about you discovering which is best for you. So have a play with each of the exercises, see which feels the best, and it might be a mixture of both, or it might be all that you need in your program. But really the onus is on you to empower yourself to discover what's best for you moving forward as a player. Okay, now we're going to talk about the speed and agility component of your athletic development program. The first part of the program is to teach you the linear mechanics of the movement. It's important that we prepare ourselves for speed and not necessarily jump straight towards max speed. We've got to build up from both a protective mechanism and a performance mechanism. To start off with the linear mechanics, I'll get a subject, Annie. To start on a cone, if you can get 10 meters in your garden or somewhere where you can find a nice 10-meter space, use it, or inside, whatever you need to, and off we go on an A skip. So the importance with the A skip is you get into nice, good positions with your knee, hip, and ankle. You want the toe to come up, you'll do the 10 meters and you'll stop. So as Annie's walking back, just to explain, so you want to get the toe and knee up at 90 degrees. You're trying to get it's important the toe up, most importantly is the toe up, because you prepare yourself for contact with the floor. And as you hit the floor, your foot is under your center of mass. So Annie's going to demonstrate that once more. So you'll do 2 reps of your A skips, punching down into the floor, punching down, remaining tall, chest is upright, and the hands come across in that sequential pattern like your running pattern. So as she's walking back, she's going to go into what's called a B skip. So the same thing again in principle with the arm drive, but this time the knee is going to come up and around, and you're going to scrape the floor with the balls of your feet. So knees coming up, foot is coming round, scraping the floor with the balls of your feet. Good. Good, and walking back, you see that rhythm, that pattern that Annie's trying to get into. It might take you a couple of repetitions to get into that rhythm and pattern. Take your time with it, walk back. This is not taxing necessarily, but a lot of good quality work when you go. Okay, same again. Looking forward, cyclic action, foot coming round, scraping the foot with the balls of your feet. Good, and then walking back, get your breather. Good. So if you find yourself struggling with anything there, it's going to take a bit of time and a bit of practice to get everything right. We're moving on to ankling now, so we're going to call this short ankling. So it's going to be ankling just around the ankle as opposed to around the knee. So the first part is quite a shallow ankling, so I'll get Annie to demonstrate. Again, there's a bit of coordination here, so try and practice what you see, bringing that heel up around the ankle, and that sequential and that cycle of the foot coming round and over its ankle. So that pattern, and every time the foot comes around, it's kind of coming up the shin, around the ankle, and hitting the floor again underneath the center of mass. Just going to do that once more. Good. A lot of these motions, a lot of these actions are a very coordinative pattern, and it's going to take you a bit of time to get used to the movement. As long as the principles are there, your chest is up, you're looking forward, the ankle's coming around the ankle and hitting the balls of the feet on the floor, and that toe's up, then you're going to get the right mechanics again. So now we're going to go to a higher ankling position. So this time she's going to come around her knee, but the same principle applies. She's dragging up her shin almost and hitting under her center of mass, but this time over her knee. So you can see the knee drive is now higher, and the foot is coming over the knee. So you try that again. Like I said to you, this is all practice, this is all the pattern that you want, and as you get a more refined pattern, you'll find that your sprint and your technique of your running will improve. So one more repetition of this. Good. And walking back. Good, so take your time coming back in, focus and practice. You'll find a bit of self-discovery on some of these exercises, and that's really important that you practice that coordinative element, as I said. Okay, so this is straight leg running. So you're going to keep your posture nice and tall, and as you hit the floor, it's the balls of your feet hit the floor, but you remain in a straight line as you're coming up, and you accelerate yourself towards that 10-meter line. Okay, so you go on to Annie. Accelerating yourself, so you're getting a little bit faster as you get to the top. That's good. Obviously, then you run out a bit of space, but we'll open this up as the weeks progress. So walk back in, get your breather. Same thing again, just think of the pattern. Again, remember, balls of feet is the contact, you're straight up. Okay, off we go. So hit the floor, balls of feet, hit the floor, good. And you're starting to accelerate that motion, good. Last exercise is bounding. Now, so bounding can be done in two ways. It can have a focus on forward mechanics or horizontal momentum, but this time I want to do vertical momentum, so height is what we're looking for. Because we're exposing the acceleration component of speed agility, I want this to be a vertical emphasis. So it's basically a big skip as high as you can. Displacement is high, not so much forward. We have a short space. We're trying to get as high as we possibly can on each repetition. Okay, off we go. Driving up as high as you can. Notice the toe is up, very important. The toe is up. Now you've seen and you've heard that pattern of motion happen so often. It's very important that the toe is up when you hit the floor. So the toe is ready to make contact with the floor to apply force into the floor. That's very, very important. That's the principle that we're looking for in this motion. So same again, high skip or high bound, getting as high as you can, each repetition, high as you can, high as you can. Good. You'll also notice with Annie, so there's a good coordinated pattern of the hand and the knee coming up. And we say with the hand, we want the thumb to go to the lip and past the hip. So coming high and behind as well. Okay, so now we're taking those patterns of movement into a more practical setting, right? So into acceleration. So if Annie wants to, you come up to here, I want to show you how to accelerate. So too often I think we think of speed and we get into those nice positions like sprinter start, but that doesn't happen too often in our sport. What we have to be good at in hurling and football is being able to accelerate from multi-different planes of motion. So we start off, we are going forward in this motion, but we don't want to predispose ourselves to moving forward because that is teaching us a false economy of being good at this position, not so much being good in neutral. So you need to get into what's called a jump position or an athletic position. So the coaching points here, the key factors are the heels of the foot aren't stuck to the floor. There's like a credit card under the heel. So really slight bit off the floor and the knees are flexed and the hips are flexed and the hands are active, ready to go. Now we know we're going forward, but you should be in a comfortable position where you can jump, Annie, if you could need to jump, or you could go left, right, forward or back. So you need to be in a good position that you can move in multi-directions, even though we're always going forward on this case. Now, what that athletic position does allow you to get into is in that first step, that negative step. So that first step of my acceleration is a back step, not a front step to go forward, because anything reactive will encourages me to get into that back step, into a nice forward lean position, and then from this position, I can accelerate in the right pattern. Without that, stepping forward means I step in front of my center of mass and I'm actually decelerating the motion. So get into that jump position again. We're just going to go 5 meters or whatever you have in front of you. The focus is on acceleration. So whenever you're ready, Annie, off you go. Good. You see that acceleration pattern when she goes, and the first thing, the key element here is what she got into a good position, and it's that drive back. So that drive back allows you to get into that front position, and then from here, then it's a hand drive, pistol action of the acceleration to get you forward, right? But it's important that we're in a good athletic position and we're going to go. Now, the first time you do this, you will always go on to your strongest foot. So you might drive your right foot back or your left foot back, depending. I want you to try your other side. So whatever side you went back on, do your other side. Again, same acceleration whenever you're ready. Okay, good. So we'll all find things that we're not so good at. So for Annie's hand drive, she needs to add her hands into the motion a bit more. But the acceleration is good in terms of drop step into a nice forward position. But now she needs to accelerate. She needs to get herself into that nice hand position, so opposites, and then driving her foot forward. And then you'll get that pistol action after the first few steps. Okay, so this time we're going to get into athletic position. We're going to do once more, and this time it's on I say go. So it's a little bit more reactive, nothing too crazy. Just when I say go, use whichever foot you want to go back on to accelerate yourself. So this is the third repetition. So nice position, go. Good, excellent. Okay, so that was going forward, but as I said to you many times, is your sport demands you to do multiple directions. So we're going to practice going over our left side or going off into our left hip. So get into the same position. Yeah, you're going to get into the position. And now we're going off to our left, right? So what will happen? The same principle applies. So I'm in a good athletic position. Again, I can go up, down, left, and right. And if I want to go left, it's that step and turn. So I want to do the outside to get into that nice forward position and then open my hips in the direction I want to travel. So it's a dual action here. So it's a step and turn of my hips to accelerate myself forward. So I'm just going to practice that when you're ready. Okay, so the important point here is, yes, it is a negative step and it feels false because it's not so reactive. However, when you do it, your weight does not transfer onto this foot. Your foot there is to propel yourself forward to your left, but it's outside your center of mass in order to drive yourself forward, to create that forward lean. So it isn't left and then shift, it is just to turn and accelerate yourself forward. So it's a drive off on that side. So we're going to try from the other side, going back the same way. The other side we're going to practice on, but the same rules apply, right? So you're just getting into the good position, driving off your left and turning. So when you're ready, Annie. Good, much better. Much better in the sense of the turn was just a step and accelerate, not a complete transfer shift onto the left side to go. We're still having the weight sort of evenly distributed, but then in front of my center of mass. So that's why you don't lean onto that side, because it's going to take a lot of time. You're just there to create the forward lean in order to accelerate yourself forward. Okay, one more rep left and right. So same thing. So if she gets into that before we go, we get the camera on you. So make sure you get into a good position. You're driving off that right foot to accelerate yourself left. Make sure your hips turn with that drive foot as well. Okay, off you go. Okay, good. So again, always practice these things. This movement is a skill that needs to be practiced. The more repetition that we can get of good movement, the better it is. Now, you've got to balance that off with how many times you've done it before. Do the amount of reps on this session, but over time, we've got this session multiple times in a week, so you'll get more practice with it. But again, just always focus on what the principles are, because when it becomes more reactive and closer to the game, you'll find yourselves getting better at that reactive speed that you need in the sport. Okay, last one on this side. Good. So it's important, again, leg position, turning the hips and driving the foot simultaneously. Okay, now we're going to try going over our left and right shoulder. So again, in our sport, we got to rotate. As much as go left and right and forward and back, we have to turn over our shoulder and do it. So if we go into position here and we face away from where we're going, get into that nice position. And again, the same principles apply. Get into a nice position. I'm rotating and I'm planting my foot. So I'm turning and I'm planting my foot. Too often, if I don't turn my hips, I go here and then I make a very big angle to turn, which is not economical. Or if I don't drive, I just turn my hips and that's slow also. So it's a dual role of turning and pushing into the floor. And then you're into that nice athletic position to accelerate from. So you're going to practice this. If you're not used to it, just practice it. One kind of thing to understand, an analogy to understand, you've all played that table football game where the bar is through the player and you spin it. Imagine that bar now is through your head and you're spinning on your head as you turn. So you're spinning on your head and then getting into that nice position to accelerate. Okay, so we're going to go 2 on our left side, 2 on our right side. Okay? Good. And into acceleration. Perfect. That's good. And the more you practice, stay up this end and just do the other side, Annie. So we can get into that position again. So steady yourself, think about what you have to do, and then execute the skill. Good. We're not going to worry today or in this session about deceleration. That's going to come in the next few weeks. It's more about the mechanics of the movement. So we got 2 more to do. Over our shoulders again. So get into a nice position. Again, practice what you're trying to do, or think about what you're trying to do, and then go ahead and execute the skill. Good. Last one. Good. Okay. It's very important that we start introducing these types of motions or these types of movements into our program from an early point, because they become more complex as we get forward and more reactive, more progressive. And if you have good mechanics, you're likely to benefit from it from a performance point of view and better from an injury point of view. If you turn better, you move better, and then you go and train with better movement, you'll benefit more from that training session than if you did it without good movement, if that makes sense. Okay, so the last component of the speed, and just remember that the priority of this activity phase isn't to go maximum speed, but we do want you to start to thinking about speed and integrating speed into your program. Now, What we want here, we've done a lot of accelerations, we've done a lot of turning and acceleration and all that stuff from different positions. We want to take out that element and that load now and just introduce the speed element, if you like. But we're only in this phase ever working up to a maximum of 75%. Okay, so I want you to do, we'll mimic a little bit of area here, but we are limited by what we can show you. So I want you, I'll maybe be the subject for a second, Annie. So all I want you to do is take the acceleration out of it now. You don't have to get into acceleration or into that athletic position. It's just cruise 5 meters and then open up into 75% and gradually slow down. That's all it is. So get into position, cruise 5 meters, open up into 75 for about 20 to 25 meters and then slow down gradually. Intensity is important. I said 75%. Do not need to go over that. We want you to do 2 sets of 5 repetitions of 75%. So cruising for 5 or 10 meters. We're saying 5 or 10 because we don't know what space everybody has, but roughly speaking, 5-10 meters to take the acceleration out of it. Open up over 20 to 25 meters, depending on where you are. Slow down gradually. Take your rest at the top. When you feel fresh again, then go again. Do 5 repetitions, take a rest, 2-minute rest, and then do another 5 repetitions. And then that will prepare us for our weeks ahead, because priority at this phase is movement. Priority at this phase is getting the vocabulary moving back in, and then the speed priority starts coming later in the phases.
We're now going to take it onto a cool down stretch just to finish off the workout. Okay, so for the cool down stretch, you're going to hold each stretch for about 30 to 45 seconds. And you're going to flow through a routine here from standing position down onto the floor and then back up onto the feet. Okay, so Henry, we're going to just start off with a stretch for the posterior chain, so along the calves, hamstrings, glutes, into your back, and we're going to stretch through the chest as well. So I'm going to get you to take your hands behind your back, interlock your fingers, and then you're going to pull your arms back to stretch through your chest. From that position, feet pointing forward, just about shoulder width apart. You're going to hinge forward at the hips and try bring your arms up as high as you can to the ceiling. So you're pulling your hands up to the ceiling and trying to keep your legs nice and straight on this. Good. So we're going to hold here for 30 seconds on each stretch. Really pulling those arms up. And really exaggerate that pull of the chest. And as you hold this movement, try exaggerate that pull. Pulling back through the shoulders, pulling the hands towards the ceiling. Good, so just holding for another 5 seconds, really exaggerating that stretch and just using a nice slow controlled breathing pattern here, into the nose, out through the mouth. Okay, keeping that position, Henry, bring your hands down onto the mat. Good, you're gonna walk forward, you're gonna drop onto one knee, and you're gonna bring the opposite foot forward, and we're gonna take a hip flexor stretch here. Good, so you're gonna lean forward, and what you're looking for here is a nice stretch on the front of the hip. If you're not feeling that stretch, you can just walk your front foot forward a little bit more. If you're too far back, you're not gonna get that stretch. So your knee here in front doesn't wanna come over the toes. You're gonna walk it forward and hold that stretch. Again, holding each stretch for about 30 seconds. If you can hold it for a little bit longer, you can go up to 45 seconds. Okay, let's keep that position, and we're going to take it now to the hamstring on the opposite side. So you're going to sit back, you're going to allow the toes come up towards you, and you're going to reach forward towards the foot. Okay, so as you're performing this stretch, you want to reach your hands towards the foot, but don't force the stretch and don't force any of these stretches. So just stretching to the point of tension and never pain on these movements. So you're just reaching towards that foot. If you can't reach the foot or the ankle, don't worry about it. Don't force the movement. So again, holding for about 30 seconds here, just helping these muscles to stretch out and kickstart that recovery. Good. Okay, Henry, you're going to switch legs. Opposite leg forward. You're going to push forward for that hip flexor stretch. If you're not feeling that, again, walk that front foot forward a little bit more. And just gently sitting forward. And let your torso come forward with you. You don't want to pull back on this movement. So just keep that spine neutral and hinge forward. Just trying to find that stretch on the front of that back leg. Again, using your breath, deep breaths into the nose, out through the mouth, remembering that that breath can help mobilize the joints and muscles. And sitting back for your hamstring stretch on this side. Again, reaching towards the foot, but not forcing the movement. If you can't reach the foot or ankle, just reach down along the leg as far as you can. If you find that the muscle is releasing out and you can reach a little bit further, take it that little bit further. And on each exhale, imagine that muscle relaxing. And relax. Perfect. Okay, let's face this direction for the next one, Henry. We're going to take it now to the inner thigh. Take your hands down in front. You're going to bring your left leg out to the side, toes pointing forward. And you're going to press back, and you should feel this stretch along the inside of the left leg. If you're struggling to find that stretch, you're just going to walk the supporting knee out a little bit wider and gently press back into it. You can rotate through the torso and sink down into it if you want to find a little bit of a deeper stretch. Feeling that, Henry? Again, about 30 to 45 seconds. And you can switch legs. Good. Okay, straight leg on the stretching leg. Sit back into it. Try find that stretch along the inside of the leg. Again, if you're struggling to find that stretch, you can walk the supporting knee out a little bit more, or you can rotate your torso towards the supporting knee. Again, using your breath, relax the muscles on the exhale. Good. Okay, Henry, I'll get you to bring your hands to the front of the mat again. From here, you're going to lift onto your toes. Nice straight leg position. Walk back to a standing position. Trying to keep the legs as straight as possible. And we're just going to finish off. You can stay facing that direction, Henry. We're going to finish off with a quad stretch. So you're going to keep your supporting leg nice and soft on this. I want you to reach back, grab a hold of your foot behind, and pull your heel towards your back side. Now, as you're doing this, the supporting knee staying soft to stabilize. And pulling your heel nice and close to the back side. If your knee is out here in front, you're not going to feel that stretch. So pull it back in line with the opposite leg or back beyond it if you can. Also trying not to let that knee flare out to the side. So keep it centered, keep it pulled back, and hold that stretch on the quad. Again, 30 to 45 seconds, and switch it over. Soft supporting leg. Keep that balance. If you are struggling to balance here, you can just hold on to something and get that stretch. So again, knee centered, pull it back. Try not to let it come out in front. Try not to let it come out to the side. Pull it back, stay centered, and feel that stretch on the front here on the quad. Again, using your breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. And relax. Good. Okay, and that's it for our session today. Thank you very much for joining us, and looking forward to seeing you in the next session.